are oppressed. We are exploited. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
How great I am.
If you're some man of the rock,
You want first place, come play with me. You want second place, go somewhere else.
Let us sing forever. Let us play forever.
Wake your ass up. Awaken the beast inside.
Ways.
Welcome back to Ways, the realest podcast in the universe. I'm your host, Osama.
I'm Mohammed.
And today we have a beautiful episode for you. It's the last episode for Black History Month, and I'm going to let Mohammed start it off.
Thank you to everyone that's been listening so far to our Black History Month series. We're thankful for the past three previous episodes. For this last episode, it's pretty much the summary, right? It's the homecoming. It's about African diaspora and what it means to be an African in whatever part of you are from the world, or even the Caribbeans and the islands as well. And for me, knowing that this episode was about to happen, I knew there was one person in mind I had to have on the show. Not because of who he is, what he's known for and stuff, is because like his connection to that concept and his love for it and the work that he's putting behind it. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to actually put the work behind it. And that's why I'm so thankful to have our guest on today. If you guys don't know who we have on, his name is Taha. Taha, let them know where the people can follow you, you know?
Wow, that was a beautiful intro, man. Assalamu alaikum, guys. Yeah, my name is Taha. Bro, you kind of hyped me up, man. I'm just a regular schmegular dude, man. I'm from Scarborough. But you could follow me on my page, on my personal page, tm.hagos, Hagos. But you could also follow my clothing line. Like I just started a clothing line at the Diasporashop. So follow that up, support. Gotta support each other, man.
Yo,
Of
talk
course,
about that.
of course,
Talk
of
about that a
course.
bit. Like, share
Yeah.
what's your clothing about? Talk about that a bit.
So basically, a friend of mine and we started a clothing line recently. It's called the diaspora clothing. So it's basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to intersect traditional clothing and traditional patterns with Western clothing, like Western fashion, because for us, born and raised in the West, we're used to rocking your sweatpants, your tracksuits and whatnot. But at the same time, we want to have something that can help connect us to where we come from, and give us a sense of pride as to where we come from and our heritage, and we feel like it's an untapped market in terms of we feel like there's not really a clothing line or clothing brand that really represents us and who we are as a people, in terms of not just us as, Africans, but just diaspora in general, right? And so we just wanted to create something that we can represent that can make us feel proud as to where we come from, And so that's what we're trying to do right now.
Oh, that's amazing. I would commend you guys, and obviously we'll support you. I will let people know where they can follow you. Just to give background information, the first time I actually met him was on January 30th, 2019. And we were just there for another event to support our friend in Toronto at the time. I think it was at, University of Toronto. And I was just there in the background. Just chilling and stuff, right? And I was just planning to go home. And then after we were just talking and everything, I just bumped into one of you guys because he's from a crew called Rootworks, right? And they do a lot of amazing work as far as like building a dam back in their homeland and stuff, right? So I just bumped into you guys, and then just one thing led to another. We started talking instantly, right?
Bro, it just clicked, bro. It's one of those ones, bro. It just clicked. We clicked, we and then ever since then we just followed each other on social media, just been rocking with each other ever since, bro. It's been love ever since, man. And I love what you guys are doing, man. For real. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, bro.
What made me happy when I met him and his friends is the fact that when you're growing up in the West, obviously, it's just we're used to the culture, right? So used to the hip hop culture, fashion culture, and obviously you're part of it, right? And at the same time, even though we're part of that culture, we do have our home culture, where we come from, right? It's not that we're born into society. We are, but our parents migrated over to this land, right? And it's a culture embedded in that, and there's values and principles that we learn from, or we try to learn from. And obviously, sometimes your parent might say in a way that might not sound cool or convincing, because just that translation. But when you actually take that time to learn about your home, where you come from, your people, you have a deeper appreciation for your parents and stuff, right? So when I met you and your friends, and I saw what you guys were doing as far as building the water dam, and I was like, bro, this is incredible. Because I had ideas like that and everything, but the fact that you guys are putting in that work, instead of, just like when we're young, you just go out with your friends, it's not whatever, which is no problem, right? But the fact that you're like, you know what, let's actually do something. People need our help. And when you guys did that, it just inspired me so much. I'm like, bro, you don't need to have 1 million followers. You don't need to have like $1 million. Just start.
Shout out to Rootworks one time, man. Funny story as to how that started, bro. Like a bunch of my friends and I, we were just at my friend's crib, and we were just just kicking up like usual. And at the time, we were like thinking about going on an Africa trip. Like, yo, let's how come we haven't done an East Africa trip, bro? Yeah, okay. Because at the time we just had just caught the travel bug. A couple of people went to. Yeah, at the time I had gone to Jamaica. Some of these guys went to I don't even know. We were just like everybody was kind of going all over the world, and they're like, yeah, let's go on a trip. Da 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 da. So all these guys we're doing I think this was back in 2017. So we're doing research and everything, but at the time there was like a serious drought in Somalia, and while we're planning about jumping on a train, going here, what I mean, going to the beach, sightseeing and all this, we're like at the back of our heads, it's like playing, it's like our people are like dying right now. Like how are we planning a trip for leisure and vacation while our people are dying? That was just the thing that kind of like clicked in our heads. And then yeah, from there, like, and then from there, Yassine and my friend Yassine and my friend Anwar really took it off, from there, and they just kept going and going. Like like I was just a side character in that whole thing, bro. But like they really took it to another level, and they managed to build the two dams, and I'm super proud of them. I'm proud to even be associated with those guys, man. Like and yeah, it's one of those things where it's deeper than just like it's your people, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's your blood, literally, and so you have to we have a responsibility, especially like the way I see it, like us, like living in a privileged part of the world where we have free access to education, free access, like simple things like water, man. The fact that I can wake up and I can, I just took a shower real quick, you know what I mean? Like I can do that. Whereas these people have to, some of these people have to walk 4 hours, 5 hours to get dirty water, not even clean water. And so like I feel like we have a privilege to use our education to, you know,
It's actually interesting you
yeah.
say that because everything you said, I remember I said before when me and Mohammed were talking about, like, because we're also like we were building wells like a year ago, and I remember in my head, I'm like, alhamdulillah, and I remember like everything you said, by the way, like it's captivated me because I'm like, people don't realize how privileged you are in terms of like, I don't care what class you're in, you're definitely living a lot much more lavishly in a sense compared to people like obviously when people in Syria right now in those camps because of their government. Obviously now like you see people in Ukraine, like Palestine, like across the world, people are suffering, right? And the one thing that mind boggles my mind and just what you just said is the clean water aspect. Because in my head, people, you just said it yourself, which is shocking because a lot like this is like the first time like I'm hearing it from someone else who I never met. But it's also like you're walking 5 hours to get water which isn't even clean. And then in my house, I can just go down. And the thing is, when I remember me and my buddy were talking about this. When it's Ramadan, right? You realize how important it is to eat because you're fasting for so long. But when you're not fasting, you can pick and choose when to eat. So I guess like there's perspectives like of what to do. Like for me now, like when I'm working, when I'm doing stuff, if like now at an older age, if I don't want to do something, I don't do it. I'm like, if it doesn't mess with my values, I'm letting you know I'm not gonna do it. I don't care how the person feels. This is my integrity we're talking about because I want to build a brand. Like now when it comes to Waze, obviously it comes to our other brands. Me and Muhammad are always like, we're not gonna do something just for the sake of the money. Because in my head, I'm like, I'm not like I'm trying to die peacefully. I'm trying to die with no sins on my back. Like I really, like, to me, that's just me.
I respect that, and
Yeah, I just had to say that because you captivated my mind with everything you said. I'm like, damn, I can't leave that out.
yeah, it was just, for me, it was just like, there's no way that I can live with a clean conscience and not like, contribute to developing, like to do something. It's like that's just how I'm wired. So Is what it is.
Honestly, at the end of the day, just go back what to Muhammad said. Doesn't matter how many followers you have, because eventually it's the impact that you make. And because of the
Facts.
impact that you make, they're gonna be like, whoa, this person, like if you look at, for example, like whatever we all want, the three of us want to do, eventually inshallah there will be that big impact, right? And who cares about the followers, bro? Like the other day, like when I saw Muhammad last, I told him that we got hate for what we're doing on our podcast, and Muhammad was like, well, you kind of made it when people are now hating on you. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, what he said didn't sit well with me, because I'm like, you barely even know me and you're saying this stuff. Like, what happens if you do know me? So I guess in my
That just
head,
comes
I'm
to
on the way.
territory.
But yeah,
Fair enough.
exactly.
One question I have for you is that you said that it's always been with you as far as just like caring about your home and your people and stuff. Talk to us about growing up. Like, where did you grow up? How did you grow up? Like, did you just grow up respecting your parents' values in your home and having that consciousness about like helping my people? Or did you get to a point around like, your teenage years that's like, you know what, I had to shift, now I'm gonna help my people? Talk to us about growing up.
Man, I had a I had a very unstable growing up, like childhood, in terms of like where we were settling. Because at the time, like, so I was born in Toronto, but I only stayed there for like 8 months. I left as a baby, and then we went to Winnipeg. We stayed in Winnipeg for a couple years, maybe till I was like 3 or 4 or something. We went to Vancouver for a couple years, maybe two years at the time. Went back to Winnipeg, stayed there for a little bit, for like another 2 years, and then went back to Vancouver. And then when I went back to Vancouver at that time, we stayed we stayed there for like maybe 6 years, and then I came back to Vancouver for high school. So it was just like a little bit of like kind of unstable in terms of like just a family situation. But at all times, there was a sense of like cultural identity. We always spoke our language at home. That was like a given. My mom never spoke to us. Even when I was growing up, and like when I was a little kid, for some reason, like I don't know, I felt like I kind of refused to speak my language, But as I got older, I started to, especially when my grandparents came in. My grandparents came from Eritrea, from Asmara, when I was, that was like 2006, so I was probably like 10 or 11. They came, and then I was forced to speak like all the time, and then so the culture was always there, the values were always there. So that was one thing that always stuck with me from when I was young. But also I feel like I had to add a level of like, I don't know where it came from, man. I've been trying to figure it out, but I've always had this like this social justice type of, you know what I mean, like wiring in my head, where I would always look at, I would view society in like in a way where like I saw a lot, I noticed a lot of the injustices in the world from when I was young, And then it didn't help that I started listening to Tupac when I was like like 8. I don't know why I was listening to Tupac at 8, but but so like I feel like I don't know. I've been trying to like analyze that and like what made me think like that, but that's always been. But I think that with a mixture of like the culture at home, kind of like and then as I got older, I started to realize that it's actually possible to do things back home. Like we live in a world where it's actually possible to do stuff like that, And so just that's the goal for now. I'm just trying to use this brand as like my anchor, to build some financial stability, build a base, build a following, build a community, honestly. Literally on my Instagram, I put community. When you switch to professional account and it asks you what type of creator you are, I literally I put community because I was like, because like that's literally because that's just who I am, like it's for me, it's like what I do, I try to put back into the world and put back into to my people, and just try to recycle the love, man.
Honestly, I think I can relate to that. Like some things you said about specifically about like your mother tongue, like your native language. Like for me, I speak Arabic. And a lot of times, like when I was younger, I just wouldn't want to speak it around like other people, because almost as if it's like back. The thing is, if you're an immigrant, if you spoke your language, you were looked at as weird. He's like, yo, this man speaks it, like, yo, what are you speaking, right? But obviously, as I got older, And obviously now with Canada allowing like new immigrants to come in, it helps a lot. You're like, yo, like why that? It's like now I'm actually forcing myself to speak better Arabic. Like I speak decently well, but obviously being around so many people who are non-Arab in high school, which again not a bad thing because you learn from different like cultures and whatever. But sometimes you're always speaking English to the point where it's just like, can I speak Arabic anymore? Can I do I know my culture? And and I think it's not until I guess for me specifically, I can only speak for myself when like Palestine happened, like the whole I guess Sheikh Jarrah happened in like in the summer time. I was like, yo, like this is my time to really invest into like my culture and to invest into like because I'm like there's people who are not Palestinian who are like going out of their way to like, and I'm here like I'm not even talking about it. And I think there was I guess some bad program you can say. So in my head, I'm like I had to like snap out of that and like dive into like, the situation.
Speaking of Palestine, bro, I actually really want to go, man.
Bro, I'm telling you.
No, like I'm actually highly considering it, bro, because I'm gonna be going to Umrah inshallah, like in Ramadan time.
Oh, mashallah.
I'm going to be
Mashallah,
I'm trying to
man.
do I'm trying to do the trifecta, bro. Trying to go to Makkah,
Pray for
Medina.
us.
I will. Of course, everybody, man, the whole ummah, brother. Yeah, I got you. No worries. But yeah, man, I've been that as I said, like the whole like social justice thing, right? The Palestine situation has been on my mind since I was young, bro. Since I was like grade 7, like I just started to notice it. I'm like, yeah, this is messed up, you know. This is not, and for me, the thing that bothers me about the whole situation is every Ramadan, man, every time, bro, like every Ramadan, there's like no peace. It's like, wallahi, it breaks my heart, man, because like.
But I'll say one thing, like for me specifically, being Palestinian, obviously being Arab, like to me the biggest thing is like unity of Muslims. And Muslims are divided, unfortunately, right? And for me, it's important when you get the black community, the Asian community, the South Asian community, the Muslim community. To me, like my boggles my mind. I'm like, why is there so many different mosques? Like you always see like mosques, which are second. I'm like in my head, I'm like, there's one mosque because when you have a powerful ummah, no one's unstoppable.
Yeah, 100%.
But for me, like like I always say this. The reason, and I'll say it right now on the podcast, the reason why I got so close to Islam is because my friend, who happens to be black from Ghana, not even Arab, got me closer to my deen. You'd think that, someone who's Arabic, who knows the language would do that. But no, someone who doesn't speak Arabic, someone who I've known my whole life, and someone who got me closer to the deen, and because of his good action, I'm like, wow, like Muhammad did this. And even like when I used to volunteer with the group, the way he did it was so smart. I'm like, he would do it in small steps. He's like, he even tested. He's like, I'm going to get you to do this. I'm like, no, you're not going to get me to do nothing. And subhanAllah, he got me to do it. He's like, yeah, he got me to sit down. So for me, it's really important to be unity because, like, as you said, when you were in grade 7, you were talking about, like, you were looking at the Palestine situation. For me, standing out of Palestine, I was looking at other situations. I'm like, why is it like I always got mad about people who are racist. I'm like, why are you being racist? I'm like, bro, we're all born here. To me, in my boggled my mind because my closest friends aren't even Arab. My closest friend happens to be from Ghana, and he's someone who I consider a brother.
Do you guys go way back?
Yeah, since we were 6 years old.
You're talking about Muhammad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make that clear. So
I've known him since I was 6 years old.
So it's insane, right?
Wow.
When I moved from Scarborough to Oakville, he was literally like one of the first 5 people I met.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I actually don't remember how I met him, but I could tell you like stories about each other from like certain points in our lives. But to me, like when I talk about Black History Month, right? When I think back in the summer, I want to say when we were still open, I remember I went to Muhammad. I'm like, yo, listen, bro, and it seems like yesterday because time is flying by so fast. I'm like, you have to think of a month. You have to think of topics during this whole month because it's important to talk about this stuff. Because in my head, I'm like, this isn't like race versus race. This is like talking about real stuff that actually happened, which is important to be discussed about. And obviously, so far we've gotten positive reactions about the topics, and I feel as if it's important for people to be educated. Unfortunately, people who aren't educated start saying bigotry, derogatory stuff, and you're like, where are you getting this information from? Because you see yourself on the news, because you hear your favorite rapper saying something dumb and stupid, and it's like next thing it's an iconic line. I'm like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah, ignorance is so prevalent nowadays, man. It's just like, I don't know. It's like the thing that's being pushed. It's crazy.
One question I have for you is, obviously Black History Month. The whole goal for me for this month was, when it comes to Black History Month, we always talk about obviously the celebrations, achievements, and accomplishments that the predecessors did, which should obviously be continued. But for me this month, I'm like, I want to talk about things that we don't talk about, things that are in the shadow, in the background and stuff, right? And that was the whole goal, like every episode. So now this being the last one about the African diaspora, what does that mean to you? Like African diaspora, like what does it mean to you? Do you think about your parents migrating all the way here when they're young or at that time? Do you think about, just us wanting to go back to our homelands and help our people? What do you think of that? What do you think?
Facts. For me, the way I see it is like, I picked up this book. I forgot what it's called. I think it's called Diaspora, actually. It's basically, it's written by a Jewish author, actually. Because the term diaspora actually comes from, I think it's a biblical term, actually. And it derives from the Jewish people who are like, have been dispersed from their homeland since however long, right? For me, like African diaspora is like, in the book, it talks about victim diaspora, right? That's like one of the like labels of diaspora. There's a bunch of different types of diaspora, right? Not all African diaspora are considered victim diaspora, but a lot of the people that I know and that I grew up with, we all come from like war-torn countries, right? And for me, it's like, it's sad to see the situation, the state of our countries, like force so many of us to be out of the country. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe there's more Eritreans outside of the country than there are in. I may be wrong, but I think that's the case. And for me, that's just a testament to how messed up the situation was in the first place, you know? And it's like, but for me, it's like, at the end of the day, Eritrea will always be my home, regardless, My ancestors have been there from how God knows how long, right? And so for me, it's always a matter of me trying to figure out ways to invest back into the country. I've never actually been. Saddens me, to be honest. I've been to Ethiopia, but I've never actually been to Eritrea. And it's like, the way I see myself moving forward is to figure out ways to to invest into my country and somehow find ways to build up that country and develop that country and help the people itself, and try to get some people to think about it as well. I really want our people to think about. Another thing that woke me up the other day was, I don't know if you guys heard about the Sudanese man in Calgary who got shot by the police, right? Like just gunned down, like 8 hours left on the street without being picked up. But the police dog, they rushed to the hospital. And I was like, bro, how are we still here? like it's not even, it's like, for me, it's like, yeah, it's like, bro, like we need to figure something out, because like here is like, it's not working.
Honestly, bro, you said it yourself. The three of us gotta figure something out, because I've said it before. This is no shot at my friend. This is just the concept that I'm taking a shot at. Something about a dog in it needing surgery. In my head, I'm like, why is the dog getting more attention than a human being who needs water? I'm not saying like that's about the dog. In my head, I'm like, you're really going out of your way. You'll spend $15,000-$16,000. The other day I was at the mosque and one of the brothers was like, you know how much my visit for my cat costs? And Mohammed was there, he can attest to this. We're like, how much? I thought like $200-$300, bro. Like in my head, that's this is me being stingy. He's like $2,500-$3,000 depending on the appointment. He's like, that's just minimum. And in my head, so when you talk about developing, I'm like, you're only building water. So for these young people, for these young families, who, by the way, are ambitious and who are disciplined, who I know if you gave them the opportunity, they would be successful speakers, presidents, whatever they choose their mind to, they'll do it. In my head, I'm like,
where are you guys building walls, by the way?
Mohammed, you can talk. Like, there's some. What cities in Ghana have we built so far?
So far we built 4 wells in Ghana in different villages, and it's really beautiful because, man, the way it started is just that, sometimes you need to send money back home just to help things out and everything. And my dad's younger brother, he just told us, like, he called me, he's like, man, people need your help. And he said in a way, it's just kind of like a wake up call. He's like, people need your help. Like, I'm not calling about, just like a small thing, like a group thing. Like, people need you. I kind of know you want to do these things. Let's see, right? And for me, it's like, you know what? Like when I met you guys 3 years ago, had that vision, putting in the work, and other people as well. I'm like, I've always wanted to do this. Why not? It doesn't cost that much when you look at the logistics and the resources needed. Osama, he's right beside me. We're always together and stuff. He wants to do the same thing as well. And the goal is about helping the world everywhere, right? Like it's not only about Ghana, it's everywhere that people need our help. And when you realize that it's
100%,
only a
100%.
few
Where you
dollars,
guys
like to build
building
one
wells, by
well
the way?
costs like I
You know,
think 1,500.
where?
Another one was 2,000. Another one was 2,500. And when you do that and you see the difference, as far as the people not having to walk thousands of miles, not having to get water from the worst of rivers and streams, and you erase all that trauma and trials and applications that they went through, God is the greatest. It's such a beautiful feeling. And I think that's why, like Osama said, it's one small thing. If people could just see just for a second, just stop and look, you realize how small your world is. Because our world is so small, despite how big we think it is, being on social media, it's small, tiny.
The thing is, I want to go off for a second because it's not until you actually step out of this lifestyle. Like, I'm gonna put these points together. We're coming back from London one day because we're doing a collab. Like, we were meeting like friends of ours to do a collab, which ended up never happening. That's not the point. But on the way back, Muhammad was like, "Oh, by the way, I got a message. The well is done." But he's like, "I want to show you something." He showed me a picture, and I'm like, "Is this where they drink water before?" He's like, "Yeah." My heart broke because in my head, we're in a mall, and we were talking about, like, I guess some kid who we saw from school was pissing us off, and from our old school, we were talking about dumb stuff. But then he just sent it because one of our friends was talking about it, and I was like, he's like, "Why are you quiet?" I'm like, "Look at the picture, and then you'll understand." Because when I saw that, I'm like, these kids are going to sleep at night with water which is not even good for them, right? And and it put life into perspective, right? And I think for me, I want to build wells elsewhere. Like, for me, my goal would be to like travel to these places. Like, I want to be a top motivational speaker. And I don't say that because of fame. I don't care for the fame. At one point,
I believe in you. I believe in you, by the way. I'm just letting you know. I believe in
I
you.
appreciate it. I'm not sure about you guys. I know Muhammad said this, but I'm not sure about you, Taha. But for me, the biggest thing when I was a kid is I want to be famous, because I thought with fame you could do anything. But the older you get, you start realizing that it seems like every single day, every celebrity is getting canceled. But you can still make an impact to these young kids. Like, when I go to speaking events with Muhammad and we speak to these youth, but I see the look in their eyes. They're like, wow, like someone who's actually paying attention and listening to me speak. Like, I actually give them the two cents for them to speak and listen to them. I actually care for what you have to say. Because in my head, I'm like, we had so much bad programming. So in my head, I want to change that. And this podcast is basically the mantra of the whole, like, basically the startup of what we're trying to do. And yeah, I think a lot of people have to step back and say, yo, like, I don't, like, if people spend more time about their relationships and like, oh, my boyfriend didn't send me this. I'm like, bro, really? Does that really matter, bro? Does that really matter? No, it doesn't. Like, seriously, like, you're only here for a limited time on earth. Make well use of it.
You took the words right out of my mouth, because I was gonna say that, but like, honestly, that comes after you've put in the work. You know what I mean? For me, it's not even a perk. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's a curse. I don't even want that. At the end of the day, it's like, it's about the impact that you're able to create, right? And how many lives you're able to change, and it's yeah, man, it's a blessing, bro. Like, being able to provide a service for people is like there's nothing monetary can replace that. There's nothing your material, you can't, like, you can give me the world. You can give me the world in terms of, mansions and this and that, but that won't replace the feeling of me being able to put some food in a person's mouth that was starving,
And you know what the beautiful part about what you just said, it kind of captivates a point. I was watching a video by, I believe it was Gary Vee, and I don't usually always agree with him, but the one thing he said I did actually agree. He's like, you don't know what it feels to be rich and unhappy until you actually are, because people think that money is going to solve problems. Money never solves problems. Funny enough, we had our episode early on. I think it was episode 35. One of our shortest episodes. It was like, does money buy happiness? I think the conclusion was, money doesn't buy happiness. Small things do, though. Like, sometimes if I see you, right, and I'm like, let's say, for example, I just met you today, but let's say, for example, I never met you. I go with Muhammad and I meet you and I smile, make you laugh, but that specific day we're having a bad day. But because of me making you laugh, you're like, wow, I kind of feel better now. Small things actually do matter. Sometimes we're always assuming that we all have problems. But I remember I said this in a previous episode. I'm like, imagine if there's a hole and you put all your problems. You would take your problems back so fast when you see other people and their problems. That's the way I kind of look at it. I just look, I'm not trying to say like, oh, like, you have to donate. I don't really care if you donate or you don't. I'm talking about at least feel for people who have to wake up in this misery every single day. And obviously the three of us do. because of like what you're doing with your clothing brand. I mean, like Allah bless you with that, and like maybe be
I mean,
successful. Obviously, me,
Mhm.
Muhammad, like with our brand, and you never know. One day we might collab. And I think for me, the biggest point is if you're trying to become an entrepreneur, it's no longer for you; it's for them. You're trying to do it to change a culture. It's no longer for you. You got to take your ego out. Celebrities, yes, you're doing it for yourself because it doesn't matter. You see, if you ask Will Smith, "Oh, would you do a video with this person?" Nah, like it has to benefit me. No, for me, it has to benefit them. I don't care if it benefits me or not.
Thought that just entered my mind about like you know how a lot of people question God's wisdom in terms of like why is there injustice and why is there evil. It's like a common theme as to like in terms of people who question God's justice and wisdom, right? But in this world at least, right? And the thought started to bother me a little bit at one point, so I started to read up on it, right? And one of the wisdoms is actually a book from Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, a scholar from back in the day, one of the greatest. He mentioned one of the wisdoms to having to Allah placing injustice and evil in this world is so that it gives people the opportunity to do good, to replace that with to replace the hate with love, to replace hunger with feeding somebody, to replace somebody who's hurt to come and alleviate their pain. You know what I mean? And it's like when I thought of it like that, I was like, wow, that's actually beautiful. It's like because with all the injustices that the corrupt have created in this world, it's given people like you and I thousands of opportunities to spread good and to balance the scales in the world, because there always has to be a sense of balance in the world. And like if there's people that are oppressing people, that are creating inequalities in wealth and inequalities in access to food and education, that just gives me the opportunity to say, hey, let me bridge these gaps. Let me figure out a way to collaborate with some people. And, there's people out here that don't have education. Okay, let's build a school. You know what I'm saying? There's people who don't have access to a masjid. Okay, let's build a masjid. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like, when I read that, like that changed my whole perspective on that aspect of who Allah really is. I was like, oh,
I know,
go ahead.
like we're talking about so much deep stuff in my head. I'm like, I can't let this go. But for me, it kind of goes back to with hardship comes ease. Like, I think a lot of the time I was watching Amr Suleiman, right, Sheikh, and he was talking about when there's a problem, we can all agree that you're going through a problem, whatever it is. And to me or to other people, it may not be a problem, right? Like, let's say for example, you tell me something I'm like, man, it's not a problem, but I really don't know that because you're actually going through it. However, we start losing faith because the problem is not being solved because we're like, oh, Allah has left us, right? And I was watching, and he started explaining. He's like, SubhanAllah, sometimes Allah will take a bit of your wealth to teach you how important your wealth is. Like if you're spending your money on dumb stuff, he's like, oh, I'm gonna make sure you spend half your money just to realize, to teach you a lesson. I'm gonna take a bit of every single thing, and then when you come to the realization that Allah's not punishing you, Allah's helping you. It's like, okay, I am gifted, alhamdulillah. Like, I've had so many opportunities. I've learned from so many great people. Like hearing you speak, man, like I could definitely, like I've learned so much from your wisdom, from Muhammad, from my other friends. And I think a lot of the times is I hate when people talk so much and they just talk like, oh, like one of my friends the other day is like, oh, I want to be a real estate agent. I'm like, bro, I love that, but I'm like, you're not a social person. He's like, oh, stop being negative. I'm like, bro, becoming a real estate means putting yourself out there and start speaking. If you're gonna do that, you have to do that. I like people like yourself. Like I can sense, even though I never met you, like you put words into action. Like I know, like you're gonna do big things. Muhammad, same goes for you. Those are the people that I like because Allah does not like people who say stuff and don't end up doing it. Like when you want to say you want to build a school, you want to build for the goodness of good. Are you doing it because your intentions are good, or because you want to you want to be on CBC? It's like, yeah, I built 10 wells. Like, by the way, follow my campaign. I don't care about that because those kids down there don't care. They just have water now, but you're getting all the fame because of something that anybody else could have done. So you saying that kind of like sparked my mind, and I just had to share that.
The question I have for you, but before I have that question, I want to give a quote. So, speaking about this topic, African diaspora, a lot of great figures throughout history have talked about the notion that we should connect. So, those in the West, obviously grown up, they should learn about their homelands and their roots and their origins. And to those who actually live there, they should learn about those who live in the West, obviously who migrated. And together, across land and sea, if we come together, we could create that economic, social, and political factor and force that we've actually been longing for. And the funny thing is, we couldn't actually have achieved on our own in both respective parts of the world up until this day. So the first quote that I have is from Malcolm X. And Malcolm, he says, if Africa wasn't beautiful, the white man wouldn't want it. And when I think of that, it hurts because growing up, it's just like I said in the beginning, like you're used to the culture, whatever, and your friends, that whatever in the third. The question I have for you is, us who grew up here and have backgrounds from different African countries or the Caribbeans and the islands, why do you feel as if like most of us don't really care about where our parents come from and just our origins?
I mean, that's a deep question. I don't know. I feel like there's a sense of detachment, you know, partly because of how far we are from our countries, and I feel like a lot of people kind of moved on from that, you know, like they left their homeland and just tried to build something new, maybe because of trauma, you know, maybe because of the trauma from war. That could be a factor, but at some point you're gonna have to reconnect with that, because as human beings we're wired to take, you know, pride in where we come from, and not in a vain way, but just it's part of our psyche as to, like, you know, to know your history. With the African Americans, you know, that's why the white man tried to completely shut off their history, and starting from their name, starting from their tribe, and they wiped that out, and that, you know, that did something to the psychology of, you know, of the African American, you know, the psyche of the African American. It was a traumatic experience for them, you know, and so I don't know. I can't really answer that in terms of like why. I'd have to look into it more, but yeah, I'm not too sure, to be honest.
No, yeah, it's tough. And I love how you brought the perspective that for those that left their homelands, wanted to move on past that. Like, I never really thought about that because literally I'm from Ghana, right? So it's kind of like a peaceful country. So there's not much of civil
Mm-hmm.
wars and just bad blood between different cultures and sects and stuff, right? So when I think about it, even for myself, growing up here, it's just like that detachment. Number one, like you said, like you're growing up in a new society and different kind of environment. So whatever is around you, proximity wise, you're just gonna be bound by that, right? And number two,
Mm-hmm.
physically, you're not there, like you don't see it. So lucky thing for me was me growing up. My dad loved Malcolm X and different black figures, so he put on the VHS tapes and all that stuff, and I was exposed to that, right? So I kind of had that
Yeah.
consciousness and stuff, right? And a lot of people didn't have that, and it wasn't until I went to Ghana for the first time I actually got to see that experience, and I really knew what Malcolm and all the great speakers were talking about as far as that longing for that connection, like you said, that reconnection to your homeland. And I guess that question is tough to answer, but I follow up with another question. So, Secretary, he used to be the president of Guinea. He has a quote, and he says, I had rather be the least man in united Africa than the most important man in divided Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Wow.
it's a beautiful quote, and it hurts when he like that's the thing, like it hurts because for him saying that, like, I rather be the least man in united Africa than the most important man in divided Africa. He said this decades ago, and this still holds true to this day. Africa is divided.
Wow.
We're not together. We're not united. It's me versus you, and obviously the corruption as far as the system in itself is just a rise, goes up and down, and the people suffer. The people suffer. And we always grasp upon the idea, like, what if Africa was united? What if like different parts of the continent was together? So there's no bad blood between different tribes, different cultures, different religions, no civil wars. Everyone's at peace. Because if you have the United States of America, like Kwame Nkrumah said, his goal was to have a United States of Africa. So what do you think? Is it possible to for Africa to ever be united? Like, what is united Africa, United States of Africa, in your eyes?
United States of Africa. I like that. Man, for me, I mean, to unite Africa is gonna be, I like it's gonna be, you know, decades in the making, to be honest with you, because there's so much, you know, things that we'd have to undo. There's so much, you know, political, like, damage that we'd have to undo for us to be able to see that. But at the same time, I still have hope because we're in a very we're in a new era, man. Like we're in an era where the world is like a small village, you know. So I'm able to connect with people from all over the world just through through my phone. So for me, what I'm trying to do with this whole diaspora movement with my partner is that like we're trying to build a movement where we're able to elevate people's consciousness about what's going on back home and try to get people to invest in that and work with the people back home. And as Tupac said, well, I'm not saying that I can change the world, but I believe that I can at least be the spark. I can't remember exactly what he said, to be honest, but I can I can be the spark to for somebody to that can change the world, right? So for me, it's like it's about everybody doing their part. As long as we have that. For me, what I'm trying to do with this whole diaspora movement is I'm trying to create like this movement where people can see like, oh, it's actually possible to do things back home. Okay, and start inspiring people to do their part. And if everybody starts to do their part in helping and improving the situation from where they come from, then the world can be a better place, and Africa can hopefully, maybe not in our lifetime, but maybe our children's lifetime or their children's lifetime can see an Africa that's functional and united and prosperous. That's the dream. That's a goal, man.
Well, Sam, I have a question for you. Because obviously we're talking about African diaspora, right? But this kind of extends to the fact that where you're from, your origins, right? Same thing concludes in the Middle East. You have different countries of economic superpower as far as richness and wealth, and you have those who are obviously suffering as far as the poverty and the other kinds of trauma and tribulations they go through. What does it take to have a united Middle East? Is that possible? And if it is possible, what is that in your eyes, at least for now?
Honestly, I think I'm gonna answer about Africa being united. I'm gonna answer about the Middle East being united because they're both good questions. About the Middle East, I think it's gonna happen. However, the Middle East has a few problems. One is an ego issue because the Middle East, in terms of development, like the Gulf has that. And they have their ego up here where they're not able to help their neighbors. Like I've always said this, Saudi has so much money, they're able to develop its neighbors. Yet they're spending money on like they opened a bar in Jeddah, so just so they can like get Americans or Canadians here, right? Unfortunately speaking, you said a quote about the president of Guinea, right? He's like, I would rather be the least important person divided as opposed to being the most important person when Africa is divided, right? For me, there's wrong leaders in power. Taha, you talked about maybe if I'm not able to change, I want to be the spark of the idea that like allows people to like change that culture. For me, I'm kind of the same way. I'm not saying I'm gonna make a revolution, but I do want to put sparks in people's mind because the Middle East right now has a huge problem where it's an ego problem where it's really divided. Obviously, after Europe came in, divided the Middle East, and obviously people started losing themselves. Like when I go back home, I'm like, dude, people always talk about the Middle East being nice, but they're only talking about Dubai. I'm like, you don't know how other people in Syria or like Yemen or Palestine or Jordan are living.
Facts.
You don't know. And yeah, if you're talking, people always say, oh, well, like 1% of Africa is living in 1% of Africa. Like I don't care if that's a billion people. I don't care. But that means other people in Africa are living in bad conditions. People always want to bring up the 1% in the wrong situations. I do believe that there is going to be one day there's going to be a change. I don't know when that day is going to come, but I do believe that once Africa in the Middle East, in these countries that are looked at as third world countries become like united, they become strong, the West is done because the West is taking resources from us anyways. The West will not survive without Africa's resources or the Middle Eastern resources. They will not survive. The thing is, I think a lot of us have become complacent where we're like, take our resources, we're fine. But it's eventually gonna take maybe who knows, Allah Alam, maybe one of you guys ends up being that voice of reason. You're like, you know what? Nah, this stops today. Right? But it kind of goes back to what you said, is like going around and traveling to different countries and being that well-rounded person. You're like, bro, this is no longer going to happen. This is going to stop today, right? And also the people have to start waking up. You kind of see it now in certain countries, like people waking up. And hopefully, because of social media and it's rising, that it's going to allow people to say, you know what, bro, we're not going to take this no more. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I just thought maybe decades from now, 20, another decade, I have no idea. But I think there's a lot of work to do in terms of the development of people and like them actually starting to like listen to one another.
Yeah, that's another that's another problem too. The social cohesion. You know, it's like we like to point the finger a lot, and rightfully so. You know, at the the European, the colonizers and whatnot. But when we look at ourselves, we have so many like intertribal conflicts with it all dispersed throughout Africa. Like every country, every person I've talked to that comes from a different country, they'll say the same thing. You know, oh, like in my country, you have the like for Ethiopia, for example, right now, the Oromo people with the against the Amhara people, and it's like, and to me, it's like when I look at it, it's easy for me to say, I guess, because I'm not really in the conflict. I'm not really in there in the flesh. But for me, it's like, man, these white people are laughing at us, man. It's like, these these colonizers are laughing at us because that's what they want to see. They want to see us kill each other and divide each other, because then it's easier to go into the country and steal the resources. If
You know
First,
what's actually
first.
insane that you say that? There's a line about in a song by Lupe Fiasco, like I think 10 years ago, called "Words I Never Said." In the song, he says, I'm just paraphrasing here, but he's like, "What you see on TV is a bunch of bullshit." Right, talking about basically, you see more people with celebrities. Like, I don't care if Drake married Rihanna or ASAP Rocky got her pregnant. That is meaningless to me, bro. I can find that on Instagram. I'm gonna go on Instagram and find it out before you even get it on the news. I don't know my people. Like when I was a kid, like I always joke around about my dad now, like, oh, why are you watching the El Jazeera? Like this guy's always on it. I always joke around because it's been that like home joke, but I understand why. Like from a realist perspective, I understand why, because my dad being born, like my parents being born in the Middle East, that's their family. That's just like, yes, my dad's been here for 50 plus years. My mom's been here for 30 years, but to them, that's their family. Like eventually when we get older and I live my own life and like we're all married, like my siblings are married, I don't think they'd probably want to stay here as much. Like they want to go back home, visit, and then come back to Canada when it's time for them to come back, do their daily things. But the white man is laughing. And then, again, this is not a white man versus a black man thing. But yeah, when I talk about the white man, I'm talking about the people who are the colonizers who are like, yo, we still have them by the neck. Like we still have them by the neck.
Put that as a
And
disclaimer.
the problem, yeah, whatever. Because honestly, bro, people are like, people who say we're not real, well, they better find out in this episode. But to go back to what you said about the colonizers, I also think it's a problem within our communities. Why are we fighting? Like we talked about, like in our last episode of Black Civil War, why is there always an issue between, oh, I'm from Syria, you're from Palestine, oh, you're from Nigeria, I'm from Ghana? That should not exist. That really should not exist. Because if you think about it, if your community is so strong, who on earth is gonna take down Africa? Who? Ain't no one gonna take down Africa, because Africa is different ethnicities, different nations, different countries, different cultures who are like, bro, now we're a whole community. But unfortunately, I think we've been so brainwashed. And even people here, dude. Sometimes I hear people from different ethnic cultures. I'm like, how are you saying that? Like, I'm just mind boggled. Like when I would go on Clubhouse back when obviously in quarantine, and I would hear people speak, I'm like, yo, there's no way you're from this country. Like someone was.
No, it's amazing how you just read out Clubhouse. Remember that story I told you about when I went on Clubhouse? You're not gonna believe the story. It's actually perfect with this episode. So when Clubhouse first came out, you know how like everyone's using it and stuff, right? So this is like your first time getting exposed to different like ideologies and stuff, right? There's a group called ADOS. I don't know if you've heard of it before. They're based in the U.S. and it's like this black group, and I kind of heard about them because I knew they had beef with Talib Kweli on Twitter, but I didn't know what their origin was. I didn't know what they stood for, right? So I just knew from a background like perspective, right? So I was looking out different like rooms and stuff, and I saw the room like Ados join here and stuff. So I'm like, oh, that's the thing that Talib Kweli had beef with like the people. Let me listen to it. So I jump in. Obviously, I'm on silent because I just want to hear what's going on and stuff, right? And they're talking about their stance. Now, it's one thing to be a pro-black group. Obviously, you had Nation of Islam, you had Black Panther Party, you had all these different things and stuff, right? But at the end of the day, like this group was like building up the black man as far as the plight they went through in the U.S. and trying to go extend that worldwide and stuff, right? As far as you said, like the social cohesion and try to get recognition international wise and to build connections with your brothers and sisters, obviously in the homeland of Africa, right? Listening to these people, bro, they started arguing because there was one African brother. I don't know which country he came from, but he just came to the US and it was him versus like 20 of them, I swear. And they're telling him, bro, we do not care about you. The fact that you're African, stay over there. Don't come over here to America and try to take all our jobs and take our resources. And you guys want to be business owners and stuff and not even hire us, allow us to work? No. And the African guy is saying, like what we're talking about this whole episode, brothers, it's not about me versus you. We're all the same. You guys literally came from us. We all came from our mothers at the end of the day and stuff, right? You guys had the African diaspora. You guys migrated, right? Obviously to your ancestors. At the end of the day, whether I'm here or you're in Africa, we must come together through colonizers and outside influences that cause the division between us. Like you said, the detachment and not being physically placed in each other's land, so not knowing. So it's not about me versus you. We are the same. You know what they told them? They told them, I don't care. I'm black. If I have problem with the police, any problem that African Americans go through, the trials and tribulations, we're going to deal with ourselves. We don't want any Africans to come feel our pain or share our emotions and everything. No, anything that we go through, the victimology, like our sufferings, we're going to deal with it alone, just only us. You guys deal with your stuff in Africa. We don't want to, I don't care about what's going on in Africa and what you guys have and what you guys are suffering from. Like, I don't care. If I have to visit Africa, I'll visit and come out. I don't even want to go there. And I was like, mashallah, like this is everything that Malcolm X, Kwame Nkrumah, even Tupac, like all these different people have been saying about, like wake up and come together. And the fact that this subgroup just has this stance that ADOS, yeah, so it's ADOS.
ADOS, because I seen something on I don't know if you guys are on Twitter, but
yeah, I'm on Twitter.
There's this thing called the Spaces, right?
Yeah. Same thing as Clubhouse.
Maybe it's pretty much the same thing as Clubhouse. Maybe 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was just randomly on it, and then somehow there was just this huge trending thing. It was very similar to what you're saying. I'm laughing at what you're saying because it was literally a bunch of African Americans, I guess you could say, but I don't think they're representative of African Americans in general. But they were just the whole tagline was, "Is immigration good for African Americans?"
It's crazy.
Bashing Africans. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, how? What kind of self-hatred is this?
I know. Same group. I think it's the same group.
It honestly makes no sense to me because before we get to your poems, I just want to say one last thing from where I see it. I'm not even black, obviously speaking, for whoever's listening, but for me, it makes no sense because I'm like, bro, how are people if you're black in Canada, America, Europe, wherever you are in the Western society, dude, you're all going through the same thing every single day. One black person goes to Europe is going through the same thing in the States and Canada, maybe in a different spectrum of on a level, but you're still going through the same thing. Me as an Arab, as a Palestinian, there's no way in Canada you're going through a different stuff. We all go through the same thing. Canada does not define who I am. You know what defines who I am? Me being Palestinian. Me being Palestinian, standing up for what I believe in. You guys being from your homeland, being where you're from is what defines you. You're when you look at the news, you're like, how is this going on? You should have a heart. We go every Tuesday, we go to Halakat, right? And one of the Halakat, the Sheikh was talking about, if you're not able to feel the people who aren't even related to you, you're not human. You're legit not human because you're how can you not feel someone who's going through an issue or a problem? You have to be empathetic to a certain point. I'm not saying go donate $1 million. No, I'm just only talking about feeling bad. There has to be an urge you're yo, this sucks. This actually sucks what you're going through. And then I go on Clubhouse. I remember one girl was talking about just to end it off. She was when the Palestine issue was happening in the summer. Not it's not happening now, but when it was really when it started the birth of it, she's yo, she's Arab, by the way, and she was and I know why she said what she said because this specific, I'm not gonna say it on here because I'm gonna offend a lot of people, but this specific type, they just don't like other Arabs. And anyway, she was oh yeah, well, Palestine didn't exist. I'm what? She said that. I'm listen, bro, I can't speak to you no more. Don't even talk to me. Wow. But I'll explain after, but at the end of the podcast. But yeah, I want to hear your poems, guys, immediately. I want to hear your poems. I want to hear your poems. I want to hear your poems. I heard you're an amazing writer.
I don't know about amazing, but I try some.
Listen, man, I heard you're an amazing writer. We need a drum roll.
I do a little some. But yeah, this one I wrote for the for the page, for the diaspora page. It kind of just, we have like a speak diaspora page where we kind of just share poetry because my friend writes as well. So yeah, we both write. So yeah. So it's just we need to get you on it,
No, I
man.
gotta join this.
We need to get you on
I
there,
gotta
brother.
join. I gotta
We get
join.
we need to
I
get
didn't know
you on.
about this.
Oh man, I feel for you, brother. That's not a good thing to be. But yo, yeah, I guess I'll start. It's called. I just called it diaspora. Pretty basic, but yeah. Diaspora. Too foreign for the lands we adopted. Too detached from the lands we fled. The feeling of home so elusive. I try to capture it, but it leaves me for dead. For what was it my forefathers strove for? For what was it they bled? For what did they cross borders and seas unprotected, with nothing in sight but dread? Many peers died along the path, and so too did their family name. But our names managed to survive the storm, so how dare we let it live in vain? Voice of a generation to a generation without a voice. A people without a nation who views them as their first choice. Sick and tired of playing second fiddle, the time is now to take a stand. O children of the diaspora, bask in your identity, for the diaspora is your new clan. That's, just a little poem. Uh,
When did
I
you
wrote
when
that
did you
in
write that?
January 12th to be specific. Yeah, it was just one of those ones, just it is, it is. I mean, oh yeah.
And,
But
and what does
for me, man, it's
and
just
what does writing mean to you? What does writing mean
for
to
me, it's
you?
a release, like especially poetry. For me, it's definitely a release. Like I like to when I feel frustrated, the first thing I run to is a pen because I'd rather take it out. I'd rather take it out on paper than take it out on people. You know what I'm saying? Because like I don't, so I
What?
just
Yo, repeat that again. That was a hard line.
yeah,
Repeat that again. I'd rather take that out on paper than on people. That's deep.
yeah, like because I feel like sometimes we bottle especially as men, we bottle a lot of emotion and frustration inside, and then we take it out, either whether it's physically or verbally, you know what I mean. We just get frustrated and just it all comes out at once. I try to regulate that by writing, because if I don't, it's gonna the emotional instability is gonna come out somewhere, So I might as well, I like to, and honestly, for me, it's therapy. It's like it's beautiful because it's like an art, It's like comes out and it's like okay, I actually created something nice out of yeah, I created something beautiful out of a dark situation or like a dark place and within my mind, I created something beautiful out of it. So I say I put the pain to pen to paper. That's what I like to say.
That's amazing. And yeah, it's therapeutic, right? And it's something like you said, bro. If you do it, it's another vessel and vehicle just to take you to another place you didn't know it could go, right? And I think for me, it's like powerful, bro. Powerful. Powerful. Actually, no, sorry. One quick question I have for you is that when you talked about social cohesion earlier, right? And one thing I loved about you and the guys when I first met you was that even though you're young and whatever, like obviously we do our things and stuff. Like everyone goes through their stuff, whatever, right? But it's the fact that man, like you guys had like an Islamic consciousness. And when I say that, I don't say that lightly. Like I say that very, very, very proudly because it's one thing to be a Muslim and stuff, right? And yeah, once we go through our own stuff, right? But the fact that you guys like, yo, like we want to be good Muslim brothers. We're gonna go to different events, be around the masjid and stuff. Do what you gotta do on the side and stuff. Like whatever. Either way, you always have a foundation to return to Islam. Even at that young age, especially when you're like between 18 to 25 and you're exposed to so much different things. What is it about you? What is it about Islam that makes you so in love with it, have that attachment, that affinity for it, and just makes you like a better person? Because a lot of people when you're young, you just it's like, oh, I'm not on my deen like that. When I get older, I might return and stuff. I might start fasting. I might start praying, whatever. But you never know. Like things might happen. You might time is not guaranteed. We don't know when we're gonna leave, right? But the fact that you and other brothers, you're pushing that. Like, you're not pushing P, you're pushing Islam, you're pushing Deen.
Yeah, pushing Dean. I like that. I like that.
This guy's
Yeah.
pushing
What is
Dean.
it?
Pushing prayer.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. For me, it's prayer. That's hilarious. Yeah, for me, it's like honestly, it's the core of my of who I am, bro. Like it's like my foundation. Like, cause like, um, you know, Islam gives me like a sense of comfort because I know that this life, with all its corruption and all its injustices and all all the crazy things that's going on, it's not the end all be all. And the fact that we believe in an afterlife and we believe that we're returning, we're all returning to Allah. It gives me a sense of comfort to know that okay, I'm gonna have to go through the inevitable process of death and that the scary unknown. But for me, it's like I have a sense of yaqeen, or like a conviction, as to like where I'm going and where I'm heading, and just and the beautiful thing about the Quran is that it gives you a clear, Allah describes it as kitabul mubin, like a clear book, like as to in terms of like what to do and what not to do. It's clear, you know what I mean? It's not ambiguous, the room for interpretation is not like, it's not crazy, so it's like for me, I have a clear path as to what where I'm trying to go and how to get there. And it's like for me, it's like it gives me a sense of comfort, and and then the other thing that also that I love about Islam is the universality of it, the fact that it's for all, and that and unfortunately as Muslims we're not upholding that as we should, there's still levels of racism within our communities that we need to fix and all of that. But the essence and the core of the principles and the message, I don't think there's a way of life that's as universal as Islam. That unites people from the deepest parts of the Caucasus, like in Dagestan and Chechnya, all the way to West Africa. You know what I mean? Like the two complete opposite people, like the whitest of the white and the darkest of the dark, come together and put their face on the ground together in worship of one creator, and it's like, yeah, those are the two things that really that really stick to me. And then it's definitely the core of who I am. Alhamdulillah.
That's amazing. And that's true. So I guess I'll give you my poem. uh yeah, I wrote this on December 11th, 2019. I was in Ghana when I wrote this. I was in Ghana. And yeah, I was in Ghana. It's different. And the funny thing is, when I went to Ghana, I had a purpose, pushing power. When I had to Ghana, I'm like, I want to write as much as I can, right? But when I went, I'm telling you, I could barely write because the amount of information I was processing from what was going around me, just that breakthrough in perception, misconception, or false assumptions about my own people and everything. And at the same time, all those ideas and thoughts I had about my people was true. And beyond that, it was just the best thing in the world. So I think it's like the only thing I wrote when I was in Ghana. But I'll definitely read it. So here's how it goes. Follow masses of the kind, eclectic minds, universal intelligence, cerebrally black, in the end, we'll all be fine. Muhammad in the motherland. Ghana is her name. Accra is where I'm currently tamed. Perfectly resonated with life in the timeline. Today's sunshine reeks of blessed times. To be in Africa is the ultimate, a dream that I can't really escape from. For as I ask God to leave it forever, to stay in my mind, within the times as I reflect, I know the difference. Therefore, I have no reasons to be mad or upset for unknown surprise. Africa has taught me so much about it's really hard to put it into lines. I'm doing it for his story. Some things have to be documented so the kids can be all right, so they can live a happily filled life. If corruption rules, economic principles, and world power-based first-class African countries are built in front of my own eyes. Expand on that, Muhammad. My own eyes have seen a lot, not everything. I love connecting the dots. My pleasure and happiness comes from it. Curiously trying to weave in and out of the worldly affairs until trying to be religious isn't enough to becoming him. I must go beyond deeper, to rivers and streams. When I go to the beach, the ants will be in front of me. While staring at the ocean, looking backwards towards the land of the free, African child starves while they eat. African child looks for a place to live while they pick their next vacation while happily intoxicated or highly supreme from the choice of drugs. African child doesn't know where to go in life. No money for school, while for them school is free. African child doesn't know what to do in life while they sleep on the various amount of options. Hey, I grew up with them. I'm a part of that lifestyle as well. I have those same privileges as well. I'm not expected to become an African child by the time I leave, but at least I know how they feel, what they speak. The difference between a loaf of bread and an extra piece of a miniature fish means to them. It's the ultimate feeling in life. It's the ultimate goal for them daily to meet the standards of to live day by day, month by month. As the years go, add a wife and 6 to 8 kids. The cycle continues. African child doesn't see the beautiful horizon of the sun, yet they live in Africa. Where else in the world do you need to go when all of the worldly resources lay below the surface of your dry feet? African child doesn't know his worth. African child doesn't know the importance of even needing to see. African child becomes a man one day. The moon is white, but it's not celebrated until it's apparent around the black sky. I guess it correlates down here as far as the structural foundation of the current world. There has to be another way. There is. They know it. They take the work of a lifetime to reveal it. African child in Africa, your life is worth more than the sum of what? Use your mind, intellect, and imagine the universal future of the world tomorrow. You'll know that whatever is against you will never ever come to haunting you. Why? Because you're an African child. I thank God because of you. So does the person next to me, as well as the person behind and always in front of you. Make no exceptions. Enemies lurk like the saliva. Enemies lurk like the saliva from the hunger of a wild hog. But you're clean and you're apparent. African child, you are the creation of the omnipresent. I love you, African child, the dark side of the moon. So that's what I wrote when I was in Ghana.
Yeah, that was great.
Thank you.
That was great. Shout out to the African child. There's one line stuck out to me. You said the moon is white, but it's not apparent under what was
In the
it?
black sky.
Yeah, it only comes up in the black sky. I was like, ooh, yeah.
Hold on, let me.
I could tell you were processing a lot though.
Man, I
could tell you were processing a lot.
Right, man. It's too much.
I relate to that because when I went to Ethiopia for the first time, because my dad's side lives in Ethiopia, and so like when I first went to that was my first time in Africa, and I was a grown man at the time. I was 20, but I was like, man, because I was like, yeah, this is home. I was like, it's home. It's home. It's home. Like I'm looking left, I see my people. I'm looking right, I see my people. I'm like, wow. And it put everything. It put so many things into perspective. And I didn't write much either when I was back home. So I kind of relate to that. But yeah, man, that's beautiful, man. I'm glad you had that experience.
Thank you, and I'm glad you had that experience as well. And I can't wait for you to travel as well, just to broaden your thought and horizon and perspective, right? And for all of us and everyone, because you need to go beyond what you see, right? And especially if you're from a place that's of beauty, despite what people tell you, make fun of you from, or what you see on TV, what you hear from your coworkers. No, Africa is a beautiful place. Like you said, for me, man, when I was there, especially like my second day in the daytime, just looking around, everyone looks like you. It was, what a feeling. Especially growing up from Oakville. especially growing up in Oakville where like mostly is white, predominantly white, right? So I was like, what? Like this is insane.
Yeah.
What a feeling.
No,
What a feeling.
Ghana's a beautiful country, man. Ghana's a beautiful country, man. Like it's like it's one of the, honestly on top of my list in terms of like West African countries I want to visit. Ghana's right up there, man. Are you Ashanti, by the way?
Yes, that's funny. So my mom side, she's Ashanti. So obviously they're very worthy as far as like their status. And my dad's side, he's
Kingly people,
yeah,
right?
king people, yeah. So pretty much my mom's side is royalty, like really royalty. My great grandfather was a king of a local city, and he had like a mansions, like local places and stuff, and it's still there as far as his house, right? So my mom's side is royalty, and obviously my dad's side Muslims, right? And my dad's side, even though we're from Ghana, the language that we speak called Zugu is actually a city in Benin. That's where our original origins is from, our tribe. So our great grandfathers lived in Benin. It wasn't until my grandfather, third generation, migrated to Ghana, where they had my dad and everything. But that's actually my origin, Benin. But obviously they were placed in Ghana. Yeah, so it's amazing, right? And my mom, she was a Christian, and she converted when she met my dad. So I got to see like both sides as far as the tribes, the culture, and the religion aspects of in Africa. So it's pretty cool. We're very thankful. Very, very thankful.
So I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We had an amazing conversation.
This is one of our longest episodes.
Well, I'm gonna make sure it stays that way because obviously the conversation was obviously always authentic, but this one's special. Man, I loved having you on. By the way, guys, if you want to hear my poem for a different episode, it's an honor for us. It's an honor for us to have you on. It's an honor for us to have you on.
Appreciate that. It is an honor for me to be here, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, man. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Super thankful. Whenever you want to come back, let us know, man. Whatever you got going on, feel free. Like this is
come back whenever you want, bro.
Hopefully, we get when we get the ball a little bit rolling. I'll try to get my partner up, and we'll definitely and honestly, Oakville's not even that far, bro. We'll probably just check down and see meet you guys in the flesh, inshallah.
Of course.
Build together.
Inshallah, man. Of course. Before we let you go, let everyone know where they can follow you again.
You can follow us at Thediasporashop on all handles, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on I think we're on TikTok too, but I don't really be using that app. But yeah, at Thediasporashop, follow that up. Support the people, support the family. We're only trying to provide for the people, man, and it would be great for people to to support, and inshallah we're gonna take it to new heights, inshallah.
You guys thought we were done? I don't think so. We still gotta wrap it up. Please follow me at Kusa300. Follow my co-host Muhammad at Muhammad.global. Make sure to follow our page at Instagram. Also, make sure to subscribe to all our platforms. We drop every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Thank you. We'll see you next week.